welcome our second speaker of the evening, who's actually my colleague. So I'm delighted to say that I get to work with this person regularly. We share the same name, but she's much cooler than me. So Stacie Bobele, come on up. And you can have a mic, I've got two. There you go. Great. Stacie has a similar role to my role in the Southwest, or had, in our neighbouring region. So I thought she would be a fabulous person to come tonight to share some stories and tips, basically from our neighbours down the coast.
Great, thank you, Stacie. Yes, as Stacie said, I'm Stacie Bobele. I'm the Business Innovation Manager for Regional Arts Victoria at the moment. For the previous 2.5 years, I've been in a role as a regional manager, but further down the coast, on the Bellarine, Surf Coast, Koroit Way, Golden Plains area, including Geelong. So doing something slightly differently in delivering a strategy that had actually already been written when Regional Arts Victoria got involved in the process. So the first few months in my role, I spent a lot of time getting out into the community and talking with a lot of people, having a lot of town hall events and just listening and seeing where I guess people saw they were missing out on opportunities, roadblocks to progression in their artistic practice, lots of different things. But so we sort of put together like a series of events called Changemakers, and we thought we'd build the themes for this around what we were hearing from lots of creatives in the community. So the first one was around governance, and what we heard there was a lot of exhaustion. And it was mainly from compliance and all of the things, the admin-y things that you need to do when you come together as a community and you're running something like a not-for-profit, like a small arts hub, in a volunteer capacity. So for the next one, I thought, well, how about we do something on collaboration and how you can come together without actually having to formalise things? What are the ways in which you can come together and gather in a meaningful way and still do the things that you want to do? So the, oh God, I'm running away.
Yeah, give Susie a nod when you're ready for the...
Sorry, I'll give you the... but yeah, the previous was just, this was the gathering that we had, and at the suggestion of Alana Russell from Platform Arts in Geelong, she said, I think we should base this session around identifying everyone's values and why they were wanting to come together, you know, why they were doing what they were doing, and hearing from a couple of different organisations, well, one organisation and one loose collective of artists. So at opposite ends of the scale, we had someone from Bus Projects in Melbourne talking about, like, they're a 20+ year artist-run initiative, talking about how they'd moved and changed over that period of time, like to be responsive to the needs of the artists that they represented, and to also be flexible in the things that change, and recognising that relying on volunteers for extended periods of time is not that sustainable. And then we heard from 3 artists who are based in Winchelsea, and they basically come together over a shared project. They had shared interests, and they just found each other socially, and they thought, why don't we meet on the edge of the lake? And they were called No Through Road Collective, and they explored like liminal spaces between, you know, arbitrary borders and the lake's edge, and pulled together, like over a series of a year, just pulled together this really amazing body of work that was really done formally and beautifully, and something that was informal, they ended up presenting it in the public space quite a few times. Next slide. So I guess I was going to talk about the 5 top things around the value of coming together, and it's probably not so much in a commercial space. This is really more in a, I guess, practice development and creative development, and really just, I guess, the value in not being alone. This group here is, it started off as a group called the Multicultural Youth Arts Network, and they're all representatives from organisations in Geelong who are currently working with young people, new migrant, who are from new migrant families. And what they found is that there wasn't really anything sustainable for young people to participate in, because projects were coming and going, but they'd build up the skills of these young people, and then the project would end and they'd lose them. So we came together to see how we could share our resources and share our skill sets to maybe have something that was a bit more sustainable and a bit more constant for them. And we actually spent the first session together identifying what our values actually were. I'm going to refer to my notes because there's a lot of stuff to talk about here. And I guess the importance of identifying your values is that these will help ground you in what you're doing and will ensure you stay the course. So you can write them down, agree on them, put them on a poster or a vision board, or even say them out loud every time you come together. And this just reiterates what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, and sets the tone for each gathering that you come together. So our first session with this group, we spent embedding values, creating a shared understanding of what our shared purpose was, and then we got down to what we could all bring to the table, what things we could change right now in order to make things more accessible for young people, what was out of our reach in the immediate term. But this didn't stop us from being aspirational, and it enabled us to set realistic expectations and goals for the group. So the group is still continuing, and they continue to meet once a quarter, and then we're just slowly working towards maybe building up some kind of youth-run festival. But at the moment we're all working within what kind of, like, the spaces that we're all working in at the moment, and how we can add on that youth engagement as part of the programming that we're doing. Thanks, Susie. So you don't have to be formal. And like the Rise, and that last group is now called the Rise and Shine Initiative. But like this one, you don't need to make it formal. All you need to do is have intent. And people tend to get hung up on legalities and the requirements for funding, agendas and action items, but I'm here to tell you they are all optional. So I'm happy to talk to anyone about this and about how to do that afterwards if you want to come and see me. A great recent example is I heard from a local group in the hinterland area of the Surf Coast who'd been operating for 4 years out of a council-run venue. And they were really lucky to get a hold of this venue because it was no longer being used for sporting purposes. And so the council officer at the time said, how about you take over this space, you can use it as gallery space, it'll be a place that you can come together. And they were like, oh, that's awesome. So they took it on, but they set themselves up as an incorporated body, as you do, a not-for-profit. So we've got all of the compliance that comes along with that. But they've done lots of amazing things, hosted lots of exhibitions, and but when I went up to visit them the other day, they were saying, look, we think the time's come, we're doing lots of great things, we've got lots of individual artists now who are operating on their own, so we're actually wanting to wind it up, and we want to know how we can do that. So we're looking at, like, they've really formed some great relationships with the community house that's just next door. They're also limited by, I guess it's a very small town, and literally everyone is on at least 3 committees, and they're all just a bit tired. So rather than all be on 3 different committees, they decided to drop a committee out of the mix and look to who might want to take on the venue management, and then they would be able to just use it informally on an ongoing basis. So yeah, anyway, so they're in the process of handing that back, but they're still really happy about, you know, what they've been able to achieve, and they're still going to be able to have access to that venue. Safety in numbers. So this isn't just about safety, it's about feeling validated, being around other like-minded people, being part of a community, and it's just nice not to be alone. Like a school of fish, as opposed to the single minnow in a wide blue ocean. Together you have more power, you're stronger. Instead of a lone voice in the wilderness, you're an amplified voice. And you'll be surprised how demonstrating the ability to come together and collectivise is seen as a positive by those who you may want to go to for support. So by saying we're a collective of X number of artists, we've been coming together for X period of time, every week, month, 2 months. We do this because Can you help us with a space to meet? Or can you come along and share your knowledge? Can you auspice this project? So feedback over the 3 years of making change, which is what the project was that I worked on, showed that the most common motivation for coming together was to replicate what a lot of artists had lost when they left university or any other formal training. They missed a faculty. And what they were missing is someone and somewhere to not exist in a creative vacuum. So to bounce your ideas around, hear other people's ideas and be inspired. Enjoy the company of other people who do what you do. To be motivated and held accountable for the continuation of your practice. And just to belong. So, and you make your own things happen. Platform Arts in Geelong, who I mentioned before, have been incredibly successful at the lab format, which is a fancy way of just saying collective, but it has intent. They've got a program called the Neighbourhood Lab that's been running for several years, and they bring together up to 8 practitioners from across the region who are at different stages of their practice and who cover different mediums. And over 3 months they run fortnightly gatherings, and they bring different people in to speak from different areas on different topics, but it wasn't really the learnings that they gained from listening to those experts, if you like, but it was the value in coming together and being part of a faculty that emerges from that group. And one of the great stories to come out of that has been a couple of artists who have since gone on to start up their own gallery space. They approached a cafe who had an empty space out the back. It was a former larger commercial gallery space, and they moved out. And so the cafe moved in, and they had, so the space was already recognised as a gallery. And he had this big empty space. These 2 women said, look, we're actually after just an informal space to show our work and have periodic exhibitions. And he said, great, come on in. And the thing about that was that there was always someone around because of the cafe, so they didn't have to rely on volunteers sitting in the gallery space. And anyway, that's been a wild success. And now from that, they've also started a monthly gathering called Studio Combos. And that's just, they have it at the same time every month, and everyone's invited who's a creative practitioner to just come along and share what they're doing. And lots and lots of collaborations have come out of that. Next. Working within your means. So this needs to be reiterated ad infinitum. So it's important to be ambitious, but to not, to not get way out of control. So keep returning to your values, why you exist and for whom. And you'll also need to keep checking in on your resources and making space for changes in everyone's lives. Ride Collective is a group of performing artists who are based in the Geelong Surf Coast region, and they're a good story of responding to when shit happens in life and then changing your I guess your focus depending on the capacities that you have at any given time. So they've been getting together for a couple of years just to share professional development experience. Many of them would be going up to Melbourne to access professional development, and then they'd come back and share it with the group. And that was a really valuable thing to be doing. But what they wanted to do was actually bring the experts to Geelong. So they thought, oh, well, let's create a collective and get that together. But it was proving too much for their professional lives. They came to me and said, what can we do? So with a bit of mentorship, we actually worked out that they actually had a lot of existing resources, a lot of existing knowledge that they could access, connections that they already had. And this is they actually planned a night on the Surf Coast after they got a bit of seed funding from the Surf Coast Shire, just to bring a bunch of people together and do some speed dating. And it was just put out there as anyone who's worked in the performing arts before and you live on the Surf Coast, come together and meet each other. And it was really in the meal that followed that the relationships and collaborations were really built. So that was a really good example. My final tip is bedding things down. So when you come together, make it purposeful, have intent, And you can give yourself a name, like even if you're not formalised. Just because you're not a legal entity doesn't mean you can't have a name. Come together with food and hospitality, that's a very important part. And check in on where you're at on a regular basis. Make sure your capacities, life happenings, all still align with your purpose. And basically, your collectiveness is your power. So, thank you.